Are these newfangled things any good?
What we have here is an unofficial remake of the 2001 classic Startopia. It's by Realm Forge Studios from Germany and is creatively named Spacebase Startopia. Okay, cool, fine, I can deal with that. Like its predecessor, it's a strategy management game, and it's been out on other platforms since March of this year to mixed reviews, and it's now coming out on the Switch. So, let's find out if they've managed to make it any better, shall we? Basic premise is that you're managing a starbase, or a space base, or whatever you want to call it, with several different floors in basically a donut shape. Each of the floors has got a different purpose, therefore a different character. You've got the utilitarian subdeck, where you've got all the stuff that makes your space base run. You've got living quarters, you've got medical wings, you've got security stations, you've got a factory, you've got a recycling centre, all the stuff that makes it go, basically. The next one up is the fun deck, where your visitors can go to plunge down into black holes, to gamble the night away and dance on the disco and basically just make themselves happy and give you lots of money. And then you've got the bio deck, which is at the top. The bio deck is just, well, it's kind of as it sounds, isn't it? It's just full of plants. Whole lot of different biospheres where you can grow different plants, and they in turn will produce different materials which you can take downstairs and stick into your factory to make stuff. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Aliens visit your space station, they use your services, they pay you in energy, which is the in-game currency, as well as prestige, which is another in-game currency. You basically get that one if you make a nice space base, and that lets you upgrade stuff, but we'll come on to that in a minute. And yeah, you use those resources to build bigger and better, and then you can research newer and shinier and more advanced and efficient things, and repeat. You can trade, you can fend off pirates, you can heal the sick, there's basically tons of things you can do, and then you advance to the next level and you just keep going through the game's 10 solo missions. The game gets progressively more interesting as you unlock more. It does a pretty good job of leading you through it. This game has a lot of elements to it, and if they were all thrown at you on the first mission, you would probably fall over, turn to a big jelly patch on the floor and never recover. But instead, each mission they give you a new piece of technology to play with, and you slowly build out the repertoire in order to not be overwhelmed, and that bit of it kind of works relatively well. So you've got the 10 solo missions, they come in various difficulties. I've basically been playing it on easy because it's me and I don't do complicated stuff. There's a sandbox mode and multiplayer, both a co-op and competitive. I quite like the idea of competitive. I need to go find some people to play this with. The competitive one, you basically start off in different sections of the donut and you unlock the door between them, and you might find someone lurking there waiting to fight you, which could be fun. So, that's basically what the game is in a nutshell. Now let's talk about what's good about it. Well, it's got very nice graphics for a start. They've done those really, really well. It looks the way you'd expect the old game to look if it were done now, which is a compliment. They have done very well. It might not have the fastest frame rates, it might not be running at 60 frames per second, but that doesn't matter. It's still cool. It might not have the fanciest lighting effects. That doesn't matter. It's nice, it's pretty, it's cute. And to be fair, the characters are cute and they're quirky. I mean, the aliens come in all different shapes and sizes, and even things like the rubbish bins, for want of a better word, they have personality. Reminds me a bit of Red Dwarf, actually, thinking about it. When they get full, they get up and very solemnly wander their way to the recycling centre to deposit all the rubbish that's inside them, and they solemnly make their way back, never smiling. But for some reason that's adorable. I don't know why. It's just cute. The 3-level system works really well, surprisingly. If you play a game like, I don't know, Roller Coaster Tycoon, for example, you're basically staring at the same thing all the time. The same theme park, it just looks the same. And that can get a bit dull. But when you're flipping between these 3 different layers, they've all got different characters, which is actually quite pleasing on the eye. It means that you can have a little bit of a respite from staring at the same thing. And while we're on the topic of respite and change, there's lots to unlock. There are so many different things to unlock. All the different factories that you can build, all the different rides you can unlock, all the different biospheres you can create, and then they each have all the upgradable levels. There's a lot going on. It is a very, very busy game with a fair bit of depth. A surprising bit of depth, actually. I wasn't expecting that. I also really enjoy some of the weird moments the game throws at you. So, for example, every so often the AI will just pop up and give you a choice that you have to make. And sometimes they are, shall we say, interesting. More often than not, they're a balanced choice. We'll make this better and make that worse, or vice versa, make this better or that worse. That's fine. The more interesting ones that they throw you are the ones when they say, here's 2 really sucky options, which one do you want? And you're basically forced to make a decision very quickly. and I have made some very strange and amusing decisions. For example, I decided to let a huge load of plague-infested people onto my station, knowing that they were going to make everybody else sick, but at the same time, I had a huge big medical centre and was in the business of making people well because they gave me lots of money for it. So that wasn't such a hard decision to make after all, but it was fun. So there is quite a lot to like about this game. Unfortunately, there's also quite a lot to not like about this game. The main one for me, it's the menu loading times. You've got to bring up a menu of everybody that's on your station, so you can then see, how happy they are, or where they are, or what their needs are, or hire them, or fire them. You press the button to make that menu load, you wait, and you wait, and you wait some more. I mean, it probably does take, 3 seconds for it to load, which in game times is an eternity. I don't know why it takes so long. It must just be loading a database. That's not a hard thing to do, but there's something going on in the background there. The way they've coded it, or the way the Switch is handling it, I think it's the way they coded it, because I have read reviews of this on other platforms, and they were complaining about it even on PC on Steam. So something to do with the way they've written the database does not work. It gets in the way. But when you do eventually get past that, and you just accept that when you press that button, you have to wait a very long time for it to load, and you have to wait a very long time to navigate around them, because for whatever reason, just moving around the menu is clunky and takes forever. But once you get over that, you forgive it, that's okay. Then I realised that the Switch is limited to 1,000 aliens on the space station at any given time, when all the other platforms can do 2,000. Now I know the Switch is a slightly lower spec piece of machinery, I can't really expect it to keep up with a gaming PC or a PS5, but that was disappointing to learn. Anyway, that's one complaint. The next complaint I have is to do with the way they've mapped the controls over to the console, or at least to the Switch anyway. I don't know if it's the same with the other ones, but to access these menus you've got to press combinations of buttons which just somehow feels clunky. You've got to hold L and X to open the menu for aliens. You've got to hold L and Y to open the menu for building. You've got to hold R and X to open the menu for messages, and it's just not an intuitive way of doing it. Once you've spent several hours playing the game, your fingers do begin to remember where all these things are, but it's not great. And then you press LB to open a combat menu. Kind of. It's a real-time strategy combat menu, but that literally involves clicking on an alien and waiting for your security drones or your mech to make the way to where the combat is, fire some missiles or fire some bullets, and that's the extent of it. But the whole mechanic is just, clunky. You don't feel like you're doing anything or interacting. It seems entirely pointless. I'd rather just leave them to do that of their own accord. By all means, pop up and tell me, hey, there's a fight, we're on our way to do it, hey, we've dealt with the fight. I don't need to click to make it go and then sit back and twiddle my thumbs. It's just weird. And while we're on the subject of mechs, they should be cool. You build this whole big security station and you can build these massive, big, impressive mechs. There's a choice of 3 that you can build, each with different statistics and different abilities. You've got one that fires a railgun, there's one that sort of has a flamethrower. One goes faster, one goes slower, it's got higher shielding, all the usual stuff. And they do look epic. They stand there ready in their bays, very imposing. But they are big. And nobody tells you this in advance, and you end up fiddling around a lot trying to figure out why your mech's not doing anything, why it's not responding to anything, until you realise you've blocked it in. You've got to make huge big corridors down the middle of all your levels so that they can walk around. Game doesn't make that clear. And actually, that's another issue I have with the game. It doesn't really make anything clear. The tutorials that lead you through how to build the game do a good job in some respects, in as much as they drip feed you, here's this mechanic in this level, here's this mechanic in that level. But rarely do they tell you how to use the mechanic. I still don't know how I'm supposed to do fighting. I may be missing something. It's not told me. It just assumed that I would figure out how to go and sort out a battle. They really need to do more with teaching you how to use these controls. I don't know, if you got the physical version and it came with an old-fashioned instruction booklet with all the controls listed, that would be helpful, but it doesn't, because digital games don't do that. That's not where we are in the world anymore. I'm old school, that was old school, but it served a purpose. I can see it would have worked really, really well on a PC with a mouse and a keyboard. Speaking of which, it should work really, really well with a touchscreen. But it doesn't. I don't mean it doesn't work well with a touchscreen, I mean they didn't bother putting touch controls in it. Which is mind-blowing, considering the Switch is 6 months later than its other console rivals. Why is it taking 6 months to port over, and they've not even given us touch controls? It would have made this game so much better and so much easier to use if you could have tapped the menus and tapped where you wanted things to go, instead of having to use these fiddly, and I do mean fiddly, controls to move around. Anyway, that's most of my gripes. I've got one more. Nah, I've got two more actually. One is concerning the AI character. Now, you're guided around this by Val, the AI, who is in charge of the station, and Val will give you helpful or unhelpful tips, advice, and will critique your abilities as a carbon-based life form. And that, in theory, should be really good. It should be hilarious and funny. But the voice is basically a synthesized AI voice. It sort of sounds like when they first launched Siri back in the day, when it was all a bit, stilted. It's all like that, which means it loses any nuance of comedy whatsoever. And that means that even if the writing had been stronger, if some of the wittier quips had been wittier, then could have delivered them. But because they're delivered completely flat and deadpan, it's kind of just annoying. I spent the first maybe 10 minutes or so smirking away to myself going, oh, this is quite good fun, it's insulting me. And then it just got tedious. It just lost all fun, which is a shame, because, the game does suffer from tedium. As much as I hate to say it, it could really benefit from something that you could vary the game speed with, because a lot of the time you're just sitting waiting, watching your energy or your prestige and waiting for it to climb up a little bit so you can do the next thing, and then you wait, and you wait, and you wait. Oh, we've got enough again, and you click the next thing. It could really do with a speed up button. I think that's pretty much all my gripes. Yep, that's me, covered all my gripes. So, what do I think of the game? Well, under there is a good game lurking. It's got good mechanics, it's got some solid foundations in as much as the graphics are attractive. The gameplay is mostly fine. It's just falls short. It falls a bit flat with the AI and those loading times and, well, everything else I just complained about. I really want to like this game. And the odd thing is, I kind of do. I mean, I've finished reviewing it now, and all I'm kind of thinking while I'm recording this is, I want to go play a bit more of it. I'm very confused. All they need to do is release a patch. If they would release a patch that would fix the loading times of these menus, that would maybe bring a little bit of new dialogue into the game to make it a bit more fun, and add in a game speed altering mechanic, that would probably make me happy. I would then be more than happy recommending this game to anybody. As it stands, if you loved the original Startopia and you're looking for that same hit, this game probably isn't for you. I think you're going to be disappointed. Certainly everybody that played it on Steam in the past, they seemed a bit disappointed generally. If you're just looking for something fun to do, you've never played the original Startopia and you want to build a space base, then it's maybe worth a look. But don't go into it with high hopes. If you get it in a sale and you've got time in your hands and you can afford to sit and wait for 3-4 seconds every time you want to click the loading menu, sure, give it a go. This is a very confused and complicated review, isn't it? It's kind of how I feel about this game. There's a lot to like, there's a lot to dislike. Yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the review. Tune in for more NS UKP reviews.